Hey everyone, this is Robin Graves. This is the world according to Graves. First off, Coca-Cola cinnamon. Let's give this a shot. Yes, it's heresy. It's nowhere near Pepsi, but let me get this straight. God, let's get this a little bit of sippage here and see what's going on here. Sounds good. Smells weird. Here's the real test. You got these today because they were on sale. So hold on. Okay, you're gonna go right here and not hurt body. I do not recommend this. Anyway, let's get started. The subject is I got this idea from Andrea Summers, a friend of mine and a fan in England. Oh, nasty. No, it's not coronavirus. It's Coke. Uh, Coca-Cola. Anyway, Andrea Summers sent me an idea several weeks ago, and I researched this, and I didn't know where to start. I really didn't. Forgive me if this is a little weird. My notes here. I finished the research yesterday, and this led me to some really weird places and really strange things. I had to shorten this down. This would have been a 2 hour long video, and I really don't want to bore you guys that much. Uh, Excuse the lighting here. Uh, this is about researching this. We'll get to the subject in a minute, but I want to explain something. Researching this made me nauseous. Um, Being a parent myself, uh, it's this is a nightmare for anybody who's a parent. Anybody who has children, you should pay attention to this because this is a living nightmare. Uh, let's get started here. The only way I know how to do this is jump into it. Okay, there's no entrance, no intro, no opening statement. I just want to get into this. I want to get this done. Yeah, whatever. Windows. Get this done. Grooming gangs and child sex trafficking. The subject. It's so controversial. I don't know where to start about this. Uh, what's disgusting isn't just the people doing it, but also the system and the authority, handling it. Just last year, 19,000 children in Europe, in the UK, remember 19,000 children were victims of child sex trafficking, leaving them traumatized for the abuse for years, if not the rest of their lives. I mean, this is an example. This is an example of one case. This is an example of how it works. In one case, how the system handles things. Victoria Abaglia, this was reported missing 136 times between February and September of 2002. This was in Rotherham, England. This is only one case. This is only one example. And that's all you're going to need. It's just one example. Because one example is one example too many. Whenever she returned to her residential care home, she was thought to have taken drugs. The staff were aware of a pimp. Okay. Let me move on to my notes here. Of a pimp who appeared to be in his 20s, who was thought to be one of the people supplying her with drugs. There were no attempts to verify his age or his name, not even a description. The girl, Victoria, told her social worker she was injected with heroin by an older man. This information was never relayed to the police. Surprisingly, Victoria's drug counselor thought it appropriate to be, thought it was appropriate to make the girl agree to smoke marijuana rather than take heroin. Within 2 months, Victoria was dead after the 50-year-old man overdosed her with heroin. Our children are being ignored by the authorities, by people in charge of anything. They don't want to. These people don't want to know what's going on, and when they do know, they simply omit details, vital details, to any investigation or any officer whatsoever. This case detailed in a review detailing the effectiveness of multi-agency responses to child sexual exploitation in Greater Manchester. As in cases in many other cities, there were numerous victims, and the perpetrators were Pakistani Muslim. Now, I'm not sitting here trashing anybody. I'm not trashing a race. I'm not trashing any. I'm not trashing anybody from anywhere. This is a fact. This is what is happening. And the truth is, that's part of the problem. Due to this, authorities refused to respond to the discovery that the offenses were taking place with any indication of appropriate force. They pretty much ignored it and passed it on to the next, or acted like they were going to investigate and did a half-assed investigation and would come up with nothing. It's like they're afraid to do this. They're afraid to investigate a crime like this. Victoria's death finally caused an investigation identifying almost 60 children at risk and almost 100 persons of interest. A nice investigation. You might think it's a nice investigation about this. Honestly, the scope and size of the investigation was beyond resources. They had zero support from superiors and from prosecutors, anybody above them. This is another part of the problem. A police force is only as good as the support it gets from a prosecutor, from judges, from their superiors. Don't blame the cop on the street. Blame those above him. Don't blame the player. Blame the game. At the moment, in the U.S. and Europe, the debate about grooming gangs and child sex trafficking and the sexual threat they cause to vulnerable white girls shows no sign of ending. It's always somebody coming up and coming with an idea, and then 20 other people shooting down the idea because one reason or the other, who knows. In Rotherham, England, excuse me, my notes here. In Rotherham, England, the President's Office for Police Conduct was upheld a complaint made by a father whose daughter has been missing for a week. This is also happening in America. He said the police told him that if Rotherham would erupt if it came out, the Pakistani men were habitually having sex with underage girls. This is a problem not just in England, not just in Britain. It's happening in Switzerland. It's happening in Sweden. It's happening in Germany. Anywhere in the UK, outside the UK, in Europe, it's getting worse. And the UK is still paying the price for allowing all of these people to come in. I'm not sitting here trashing immigration, people. That's the last thing I want to do. What I'm saying is, these people are bringing their crime to our shores. They're bringing the crimes to other nations' shores. And due to the fact of where they're from, and the very liberal attitude of our lawmakers here and abroad, nothing's being done because they're saying it's part of their culture. Well, in the words of somebody I follow online, who I can't mention because several of the social media sites I post this on will ban me permanently. In his immortal words, some cultures are better than others. They want to say that this is all part of their culture. Is crime part of their culture? Well, I guess if it is, they're omitted from any prosecution. The really scary thing is this is the same kind of problems we're having here in America. It gets quite scary at times. In recent years, the subject of child sexual exploitation has been in the forefront of news networks in Europe. On BBC, Sky News, they're talking about this over there. They're making mention of it. The child sex trafficking, the grooming gangs, and where they're from, what they're doing, how many children are involved. But American news networks have strayed away from the subject. They don't want to let you know this. They don't want to talk about it. They want to pretend it's somebody else's problem. The reason for this? It's very likely America has the worst grooming gang scandal and refuses to confront the problem. American media doesn't. They don't like to use the term grooming gangs. It uses the term sex trafficking. This term doesn't really convey the true nature of the abuse that goes on with these children. And it implies that it's only adults who are involved. Never do they mention if children are involved. They just say persons. Never if it's children or adults. It implies it's adults. They don't want you to know that these people are doing things to your children. They want to keep the status quo happening. They have an agenda to serve politicians and lawmakers who want these people here doing this because they're a voting base for the left. You don't think so? Do some research. This is another problem without any answers yet. So far, the subject has been pretty much neutered or sanitized so that nobody knows what's going on. Yes, got another asshole cat in here. She thinks she lives in here. The American media doesn't want to use the term grooming gang. They refuse to because it ties in with what's happening in Europe. See, you can see it in the background. She's an asshole. They want to say it'll tie in with what's happening in Europe. They want to change. They want to change it, sanitize it, neuter it, and make you think that it's not children, it's adults. They want you to ignore the fact that it's children, because if you find out it's children, you're going to get upset. You're going to get very, very upset with those in power. It is estimated anywhere from 100,000 to 350,000 children are sexually exploited every year here in America. That's a lot. I don't care who you are. Usually vulnerable children are preyed upon by pimps and gangs who brutally rape them before selling them to multiple men at night. It's here in Atlanta. Here recently, there was a sex trafficking operation that was busted. It had direct ties to Epstein and child grooming gangs over in Europe. It had direct ties to these. Epstein was a major player here in America when it came to child grooming, to the sexual abuse of children, pedophilia. Many of these children come from foster homes or juvenile courts. Some are preyed upon online or in group homes. People, parents, pay attention to what your kids are doing online. A lot of these are being done on social media like Facebook, USA Live, Tinder, all of these. Make sure your kids are watched. Make sure you know what your kids are doing, who they're speaking to. It's very important. They've been going after at-risk children. Any child they can convince that they can do something for them. Gangs like MS-13 particularly target those with learning disabilities. That's been a big thing here in America. The sexual assault and trafficking of young girls with learning disabilities. Individual perpetrators will target the same victims, but are more likely to be prosecuted as opposed to gang members who law enforcement rarely prosecute or even investigate for fear of violence or claims of racism. That's something that's really big time. You want to prosecute somebody that's not American for practicing pedophilia and for raping your daughter. You're a racist because they're not from your country. They're just here visiting or they immigrated here. You're anti-immigration. You want to blame the entire culture for this. Why don't you just want to blame the one person? People are shamed into not saying anything. They're shamed into not pursuing charges on a migrant for doing this. Most is covered up or ignored due to the perpetrator's race, ethnicity, or political or financial connections, or the ever-present politically correct mindset of lawmakers and prosecutors. That's a problem. This politically correct thing, you can't go and point a finger at somebody and say you're a child molester, because the guy may be Hispanic, he may be from the Mideast. It's part of their culture, and it's politically incorrect to down anybody's culture. I got news. Some cultures are better than others. the details about a lot of this that's going on is horrendous. I mean, you know, um, six, 1 out of 6 runaways are victims of sex trafficking, and that's just the beginning. Jesus Christ, people! It's you have runaways out there that are trying to get away from a bad situation at home, what they perceive as a bad situation, and next thing you know, they're sold for sex. It's not a cool thing to do, people. It's not a cool thing to sit there and just dismiss and ignore. I had to shorten this because I could go on for hours, and I'm sorry I was reading a script here, that I'd written, my talking points, and I sounded wooden, but this subject bothers me. This subject sickens me to the max. And Andrea, thank you for bringing up the subject because it needed to be talked about. I'm making this. I'm trying to shorten the thing down because I'm very limited for time. I'm having to use my wife's office right now because she's not using it and stuff. So if I'm a little short tonight with the subject, instead of going the original 25 to 30 minutes, I'm sorry. But since this is over with, I want to say thank God it is, but it's not because I got a funny feeling I'm going to be revisiting this. I really do. But I want to ask you guys a question, and I want you to let me know what you think about this, because this is brought up to me today by my goddaughter. She kind of sees the world in several different ways. I'm very thankful for her. She was my late blood brother's daughter, Shara Boffman. She came up with something today that I want to ask everybody. And I probably already asked you, some of you people on Facebook, but as you know, this goes to like 6 social media sites and 3 news groups. And I'm looking for answers from everybody. I want your opinion on this. So let me ask you this. If the coronavirus was not lethal to people over 60, do you think that we would be in the same position we're in now with the media scaring everybody and all of these shutdowns we have and all the lockdowns and all the curfews? Right now, South Fulton County, South Fulton, South Atlanta is under a curfew. We have stores closing down. We have stores limiting hours. We have restaurants that are takeout only. The traffic out on my street is zero almost. Last Saturday, my wife and I had to go to her place of work to pick up something. We made it there in record time because of lack of traffic. We have 400 people here in Georgia who have the coronavirus. 400 people out of how many people live here? Yes, it's bad, but do you think if our politicians, most of our career politicians, weren't over 60, that there'd be such a fuss made over this? If this only killed people 10 to 15 years old, 10 to 20 years old, do you think the media would be making such a big fuss about this? All I hear from the media are scare tactics. All I hear from them are, you're going to die. 500,000 people are going to die in this country. Maybe. But so far, the proof of the matter is 99% of the people who get this are going to survive. I don't believe for 1 second that the media would be still considering making this a horror movie if it did not become lethal to anybody over 60. I guarantee it. They wouldn't. But guys, let me know what you think. If you like what you've heard, please hit like and subscribe. Leave a comment. Let me know what you say. Let me know what you think about this. We're going to be revisiting this probably the next week or so. So please leave me a decent answer. I'll probably even read your answer online. So anyway, you guys take care of yourselves. I'm Robin Graves. This has been The World According to Graves. I love every one of you. You guys mean the world to me. You're about the only social group I have. So you guys take care of yourselves. And always remember, talk hard.